So we get there, get out of the car, and we're in the middle of a graveyard. So is this the way French people entertain their guests? Taking them to the graveyard? I said, no, guys, you'll see.
I knew that I wanted Msaki to be in this team. She is just one of the most beautiful village criers at the moment.
He's so young, he hadn't been to the mountain. Remember, he's a Mpondo guy. He hadn't been to the mountain. So he's not a man yet.
Yeah.
So those are the dichotomies that we explore here as well. He's trying to be a man, and we as South Africans are trying to be a nation. Many South Africans do not know their history, but at the same time, you don't want to be didactic to say you must learn history now like this.
Welcome, dear listeners, to the echoes of the Mendi. I'm Palesa Mazamisa. Today I have the immense privilege of sitting down with two titans who have breathed new life into this narrative. The acclaimed author of the novel Dancing the Death Drill, Fred Khumalo, welcome.
Thank you.
And the visionary artistic director of the Joburg Theatre and director of our play Dancing the Death Drill, Ngcobo. Welcome, gentlemen.
Thank you.
So, I would like to give the stage to you, Fred.
Thank you. Thank you for joining us, listeners, from wherever you are joining us. I've always believed that in order to go forward, we are compelled to look back where we come from. So this particular book, as you correctly pointed out, is a celebration of one of the pockets of our history that have been kind of conveniently forgotten by the powers that be. So when I stumbled upon evidence that this thing really happened, because growing up in KZN, we were told these stories about black men who went to fight in Europe in defense of this dream called South Africa. But of course, as kids, we used to think, Inganegwan, it's part of mythology. Until I went to France and I was confronted with real evidence that some of these men are buried here in France. So there are graves in a small town called Dieppe, which is on the west coast of France. And then I was inspired, therefore, to take this story seriously and commit it to paper. Obviously, I'm a novelist and I'm not a historian, so I had to bring elements of intrigue in telling or reimagining what happened on that fateful day in February 1917, when, as you correctly pointed out, more than 600 black men, primarily, with 2 or 3 of their white officers, perished when their ship got involved in an accident. So, but the book is not just about that. It's about the celebration of black life in South Africa at that time, in the early 1900s. How did black people live? How they were treated? How they were recruited to go and defend a country which kind of didn't want to acknowledge, to give them proper acknowledgement. So they went over there to say, maybe if we throw in our lot with the British Crown. Remember, South Africa at the time was governed by Britain. So they thought, maybe if we go and serve over there, when we come back, we might be given proper privileges as citizens of this country. So that is what happened. So in telling this story, one tries to, well, of course, as an entertainer, as a novelist, one looks at how to draw in the reader without boring them, which is what you guys are going to be doing. From what I've heard, you are doing a splendid job of bringing these words that we put down on paper to life, so that they burst with energy and vitality. And I know James can talk a lot about that, and so I'm going to ask him to help me because I'm not that articulate.
But before you get there,
yes,
I think you're downplaying this book because it was far from boring. When I first got my hands on this book, I literally, as I told you, I started reading around 9 o'clock and I finished same day in the afternoon.
Yes.
Because I literally could not put it down.
Sure.
I just had to clear my day and say, okay, I will do what I need to do later. But the book, it's so profound, it's so meticulously researched. And I think what you've done so beautifully is to take history, a historical narrative, and the characters that you create around it. Like every time I think of these characters, my heart just, it sinks, because I'm so emotionally involved in who they are, in their lives, well, the lives that you've created around that. But with that said, let's go to James. James, what struck you as the theatrical potential for this particular book?
Okay. I mean, for starters, for me, I've always believed there is no better way for any country to celebrate its writers than efforts to take books and adapt them to stage productions. And for me, it becomes a bigger way to cast a net very wider and tickle the curiosity of people, to get them to read and just be in touch with what minds that we have in this country are able to take stories that we've known for a long time and just put such beautiful imagination about them and give them an immediacy, even if it's a story from a long, which is what happens when you read. I mean, one of the most beautiful things for me in this book is there's a character called Tladi, when he talks about his father, the farm, the rifles, and things that you never thought, you know what I mean? Because we haven't been writing about our normality. We haven't been writing about irrespective of the most difficult terrain that we've had to navigate. We have been raised by people who make sure that they give us so much love that it takes us away from the harsh realities that are out there. And so Fred for me just did like he does in all his it's almost like there is I don't know, it's like he's got this imagination machine inside him that you know. And so upon reading it, and as I've discussed it with you, putting it down, I knew definitely that there is a play here that needs to be staged. There is a play, and our biggest commitment in the idea of making this piece of theatre, to echo what Fred was saying, we don't want the audience to feel like they're being taken through a lecture at all. The audience needs to come into a theatre and we present a work that says there was so and so at this time, and they lived. And even when the adaptation was happening, Fred has really done a beautiful carpet that goes throughout a couple of decades of the life of this man that is, you know, post-war into the next war. And we've tried to just bring it much closer to the war, so that there is a tension. There is a tension about it when a character like Portsmouth is saying, I was wondering how you're dealing with those who are hunting you down. You're giving it quite a tension that is right now. So we've worked on we just being blessed with the pictures that are in the story, the collision of the biographies of people from different pockets of the country. And what Fred was saying also, there was a carrot that was dangled to a lot of desperate black men, and people then said and said to themselves, I'm already wallowing in nothingness. This opportunity is going to be better than this. And they're not knowing that they're going to face one of the biggest calamities that this country has ever had to deal with. And you're talking about, let alone that some people had never seen the sea in their lives. The swimming, there is no, people could not. So they're sitting and there's this huge blue blanket that is an enigma for them, that at night they say it disappears, they can't see it. And you could tell that they were quite intrigued by by the sea, by being around the sea, and a longing. They keep talking about to touch land. One of the characters even says, "If we ever touch land again," you know what I mean, in a very playful way. But it becomes later when the accident happens. So as Joburg Theatre, we in terms of how our curatorial ideas, we want to be a space that is taking its head off to such beautiful gifts that we've been giving in our country, and that gift is Fred Khumalo to give us this book and to allow us to reimagine it, and to allow us to make a production that is inspired by his book, and we are staging it, and we wanting our patronage that comes, our loyal patronage that comes to the theater to watch shows, to come and watch this other palette that we're presenting to them. And so we are in 2025, in this tapestry we're looking back and telling the story, and we want to put all the tools and all the different ways we have to tell stories today, so that we are making it for contemporary eyes.
Yes, and this happens within a contemporary context of people are talking about a national dialogue.
Yes.
And we are hoping that this production is going to add another layer to the dialogue. Who are we as South Africans? How did we get to where we are, and where do we want to be in the next 10 years, 20 years, 50 years, or whatever? Because these kind of theatrical productions are a contribution to the ongoing realization of that dream of being South African.
And for me, there's a part about, I just had this aha moment to think after all the time we've been writing. But I thought about a character in this play, and that's memory. Because this is really a work about memory. It's about defining who we, like you're saying now. It's about defining who we are. It's about remembering who we are. And I think it's very important what you've just pointed out about the national dialogue, because we need to start looking and bringing in where we've come from, where we're going. And I think the arts are quite pivotal in shaping those dialogues. But the thing of memory, what came to me, this is a constant conversation about memory. So we've got the characters remembering constantly. We see it in what they say, in what they don't say. We see it in their movements. And I was wondering, when you were writing this work, can you talk about the role of memory in storytelling?
Yes. So I have to go back to, I'll give you the genesis of the whole idea behind the book. I went there as part of a group of journalists from South Africa to France. We were invited by the foreign minister of France to do a story. So during our spare time, the guy who was driving, our chaperone, who was a Frenchman, thought, okay, let me entertain these guys. So remember, we were in Paris, and he says, tomorrow we get on a train, I'll take you to the coast. So we get excited. I'd never seen a French coastal town, whatever. So the following day, we got on a train, traveled all the way to the coast, and at a small town called Dieppe on the coast, get on a car, it drives along the mountains, and ultimately the car stops. This guy hasn't told us what exactly we're going to be doing, because we left the sea already, so we're going up the mountain, so maybe going to a mountain lodge or whatever. We don't know what's happening. So we get there, get out of the car, and we're in the middle of a graveyard. So is this the way French people entertain their guests? Taking them to the graveyard? He said, no, guys, you'll see. So we start walking among the gravestones, and then, how? Vundla, how? Mukwena, how? Recognizably South African surnames among these gravestones. And so we're saying, who are these people? He says, yeah, I got you now. And Thierry starts saying, are you familiar with the story of the SS Mendy? So I said, yes, I am. And Chris More, who's a Tswana guy, says, yeah, I am familiar with this story. But the other guy wasn't. He's a white guy, but he wasn't familiar with the story. So anyway, he starts telling the story. Some of the guys who survived the sinking of the SS Mendy in 1917 continued to serve here in France. Some of them are buried here. Well, some of them who are buried here died of natural causes. Some of them were shot, and so on and so on. So we thought, wow, so this story really, really is the reality. Because we, as youngsters, as I said earlier, we used to think, Inganegwane, it's just part of our mythology. So now we were confronted by evidence that this thing really happened. So I said, okay, what do I do with this story? So I wrote a series of stories for the newspaper that I was working for at that time. And I sent them to the office, and they were published. The kind of responses we got as a newspaper, this was an Afrikaans newspaper. I was working for a Rapport newspaper at that time. So people are writing, oh, my grandfather, blah, 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 blah. And then the story was translated. One of the stories was translated, published in City Press in English. And then black people started writing as well. One black professor, he's an academic, said, I went to university thanks to a bursary that was called the Mendy bursary. I said, what? And he says, people who came back from the war as a recognition of what they went to do over there, said, you know what? Let's put together the pounds that we have into a bursary fund as a legacy to the war, to our contribution as black people to the war effort. So they started a bursary fund which survived right until the 1980s. So this black guy, this black academic said, I'm a beneficiary of that. So, and they gave me a lot of information. So I realized, no, this thing is bigger than a series of articles in a newspaper. Let me write it as a book. So I saved some money. I went back now to France on my own. I spent 3 months in France among those mountains. Yeah, because I'm saying, okay, I'm going to write this as a novel. So I have to reimagine how these black people who were there in that town lived. Remember, they got there in February, and the French winters are ferocious.
Yes.
Yeah. So I'm imagining what would have happened to them at that time. The heating wasn't modern as it is now, and so they were transporting guns and ammunition from the coast where we were up the mountain. There were no trucks. There were those were donkey-pulled carts and oxen-pulled carts.
In the book, you even talk about, you mentioned the tree fellers.
Yes,
who would have created those pathways.
Yes. So that is what black people did at the war effort, and immediately after the injection of black blood, so to speak, into the war, and the war, the trajectory of the war changed, and we, meaning Britain, came out victorious against the Germans, and we know what happened. We came back. We were not recognized as black people. Our contribution was not recognized. 25,000 black people went over there. Yes. So these guys on the SS Mendy were just one battalion. Yeah, of many. You know. Yeah.
They mention a lot because of the accident. There were others.
Yes.
Palesa found a beautiful recording of King George that we've added in the production.
Yes. I saw.
African.
Yes, I saw that.
South African soldiers for their contribution. But there's a thing that I've always said, like a mantra to myself, because of the amnesia we have in this country. I always say, one thing we're not getting right is that the phenomenon around the world is that the nations that run the world are nations that have mastered memory. There is something about memory that clears the path to where you want to be, that makes your aspiration, your future aspirations, much more fluid. And we look at memory in this country as an albatross around our necks, and we even say, into I want chilling into Zakdala, and and so there is a very clear umbilical cord that we are dealing with, as specifically us as black South Africans, that we don't like to remember. We see baggage in remembering, but remembering, it's beautiful, because it just, whatever that you are looking at in the now as for the then, when you remember, it makes that clear.
Yeah, and one of our great poets, Don Matera,
Yes.
articulated very, very beautifully. He says, memory is the weapon. Yes. So they might have jailed me, they might have muzzled me under apartheid, they might have tried to kill me even, but because I remember, I fought back. Yeah,
Yes.
you see, yeah. So memory is a repository of beautiful things that happened in the past. You keep that, you seek solace in memory as well.
Yeah.
You know, you use it as a weapon. You use it, as a weapon mainly, and as a torch that lights into that slices something light into the darkness.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's memory is very powerful.
It gives you a confidence, it gives you a sense of like a resolve to be able to look people in the eye, and when they say, where you from, and you mention where you come from, because you, if somebody then says to you, give me 5 things that define the space that you come from, you're able to eloquently speak about it, not have to think deep about it, because it's your narrative that is so interwoven with your everyday, and so for me at the theater, just the idea of getting young people to come and interact with this space, and we've really looked at an exciting creative team, and I knew that I wanted Msaki to be in this team. She is just one of the most beautiful village criers at the moment, and when you start bringing Msaki to this production, you start saying to these people, you're not making it for a certain enclave, or for and Luyanda Sidia, who's also the recipient of the Standard Bank Young Artist Award, who's just an amazing choreographer. His choreography has got dramaturgy, and he's been like the big dramaturgy he's had now. He's read the book, and we've been talking, Luyanda, about what we're doing with the character called Milkota in this, and have taken a decision to that Milkota's story is going to be it's moved, which makes our character Pito look at this person and the slice of life that he can't really decipher. It sort of like excites him, not excites him, it puzzles him when he sees Milkota and the clan that he came from and the people that he was with, but he couldn't really work out what was going on. And we've used that as just a seed in the piece to say one of the most indelible memories for our character Pizzo in the story is this guy that he says was probably the youngest person on the and who was lost, and we've taken that license from Fred's book to then blow up the story of Milkota, and that it's moved, and we as we get on the floor, and we've done it with Palesa, we've been working. Milkota is everywhere because Milkota is remembered by Pizzo. And in his quiet moments when the the character of Ngcobo and the moments they together that they spent the 2 months all the way to Plymouth and all the way and all these people from different parts of the country. Some of them couldn't even understand each other because of the languages, but there is a lot of color that is in, and we've been sitting with the costume designer to give us the aesthetic. That is an aesthetic that is going to speak to the fact that we colonized already by the time the story happens. So this garb needs to talk to the presence of colonization, but at the same time, very quickly, you can cover that and be in another time with a huge focus on the Bondo people and the Sotho people. That our look in the piece, we're concentrating a lot on those, because you also want, when you're dealing with the book, that's what we've been sharing also with the actors, is that you have to come up with a wish list as to what will be in the production. Sure. You know, and so even with its look, we've made sure that we don't want to overwhelm the audience with so much. Yeah. So you just need to say, this is where we're going to concentrate at, and it gives us this look for the piece, and what you're not getting on stage you can project.
Sure. And when Ngcobo, just to go back to Ngcobo, because he's a very fascinating character, he becomes a metaphor for this nation, because in 1917 this entity called South Africa was still called the Union of South Africa. It was a new country, a unification of the Boer republics and the Natal colony and the Cape colony and so on.
The Land Act 1913.
13 years, yeah. So Ngcobo goes he joins the war effort. He's so young, he hadn't been to the mountain. Remember, he's a Mpondo guy. He hadn't been to the mountain. So he's not a man yet. So those are the dichotomies that we explore here as well. He's trying to be a man, and we as South Africans are trying to be a nation. So there's the metaphor as well there. Yeah.
And also the silence that is enforced on Ngcobo. And there's parts of us, especially black people, we feel that enforced silence. You know, it's almost as if we're being told that you're not yet at that point where you're allowed to speak, where you're allowed to remember, where you're allowed to be. But just to take it a bit further and talking about bringing the youth into theatre, this is a story about identity, memory, the recognition of unsung heroes. Why is this story so important to be told now in 2025? And as you were mentioning, ahead of this national dialogue, I think it brings another element to the importance of this.
I think we are telling this story so that young people, not only young people, many South Africans do not know their history, and but at the same time you don't want to be didactic to say you must learn history now like this. And thankfully you guys are doing a splendid job of presenting an entertaining piece, which at the core of it has that kind of lesson, a very rich lesson, very rich a chapter of who we are as South Africans, where we come from. And so that's why we're telling this story, to remind ourselves of our greatness, or the greatness that we are striving for as a South African nation. That is still, we are a project, a working project. Yeah, so this story, I think, is a contribution towards that kind of conversation of what do we want to be. Yes.
What we need to do, us, is to tell the story of Pitso. If we tell his story, everything about the time and everything is there, because he comes out of it.
And he is a very complex character. Yeah, he's a very complex, a very engaging character. Yeah.
And it's quite interesting because it's set in that time, but the issues that Pitso is confronting are very contemporary.
Yes. Racism, colorism,
absentee fathers.
Yes.
I mean, that is today, and he's so trying that struggle of trying to find who he is, and men redefining themselves. It's a big thing today, where men feel that it's women who've been put at the fore, and so they're trying to negotiate. Okay, how do we find ourselves, place ourselves in this new context?
And he has this need to finish something, Peter, because he feels his father never finished anything, never even finished raising him and loving him. So it's something that whether he's sitting with an easel he's drawing, or whether he's learning to play piano, or he's learning to this morning I was also just like so excited. Clint Brink, who's playing the character, is at the classes, the accordion. He's been because he already plays the piano. So Palesa found this place, and we've sent him. He's there for like half a day today, and he's because we have a section in the piece where we want to see him sitting next to the Seine River and singing that meeting with Jerry, and also a lot of people don't know about Clint Brink as an actor. That Clint sings, Clint plays piano, I didn't know it also, she told me, and I said, what do you mean he sings? So it's lovely, and we've got Thuli Tabete, who's another recorded artist. There was a group called Seed, they had a guy who played guitar and a vocalist, and Thuli was the woman in Seed. She recorded an album when she came out of drama school, and I was talking to her yesterday, and she said, no, I've read the draft that we're using. She said to me, what do you need? And I said, your heart. We are after your heart, because she's such a passionate actress, and just explaining to her that she's playing a woman who never really experienced a lot of joy. When she was young, I must say this, so when she met with Colinius, when it was joyful, the excitement of discovering that she's pregnant, and after that it's just downhill, and I will send pictures to Fred, and we were checking who's the right one, because we needed an actress that will carry that emotion, and an actress also who will help us, because our lead character Pitso, there are things about his life that he can't tell, which is the first section of the book, but the mother is the portal to that. When she says to him, oh, you remind me so much of your father, your Cornelius, your nose, and that he doesn't know him. She then starts, when she tells him, she tells us as the audience why he's a mixed race child. You know what I mean? At a time when and there's beautiful things you touch on also on the economics of the time of the Indian people, the Indian traders, the Jewish traders, the Saluji, that a lot of people might not be privy to the emergence of just businesses around, people opening general dealers and whatever, that some of them went all the way to be the OK stores and all these things.
And it's the time before the formalization of apartheid.
Exactly.
And it's very interesting to see what that world looked like, creeping in of the laws that would then in 1948 become apartheid laws. But it's creeping in, but people are still having this society where there was a little bit of a different freedom than what we understood. And you touch on that quite well. It's a very fascinating life to see and to experience.
And the character of Reverend Joba, who is a real life character, it gives us as viewers a window into a certain class of black people, educated, well educated, and very advanced in their thinking.
You do touch on that, because you mentioned There's those who went to Lovedale.
Yes, yes,
and
yes,
also
yes.
the range of diversity of black people.
Yes, yes.
Which I always find interesting, because when we tend to look back using the lens of today, we also stereotype and we think that there was only this type of black people.
Exactly.
So the fact that you
Yeah,
also
yeah.
bring the diversity, the differences economically in terms of education.
Yes, yes.
It's necessary, because we cannot only see ourselves as
victims,
victims, downtrodden, because
yeah,
that's not who we are.
Yeah,
It doesn't
exactly,
define
exactly.
us. Can we maybe just get your view on the actors we've casted, and maybe what you hope to see and experience?
No, I've never seen Clint on stage. I've watched him on TV, and most recently, the Kings of Joburg. Yeah, that character is the character that he plays there. So when James showed me the final list of actors, I said, "What, Clint?" I said, "I want to see him on stage, because he's a great actor." Now you're telling me he also can play music. Which
she's led us to
yes,
Clint,
yes.
really.
Yeah.
So I've never also worked with Clint, and I always, for me as a director, find it quite fascinating to work with actors I've never worked, because that's how we grow as directors. When you meet somebody you don't have a shorthand with, and you're gonna to find story. Jose Domingos is, I've known Jose's around my age. I've known Jose. Jose was around the time of Shomla Tandala.
Yes, okay.
Dumisho Banja.
Yeah.
He's there. He's a little younger than Vusiknen and Rapulana and whatever. But it's always been quite a fascinating actor, and I've always thought she's a love to work. And I just had a long phone call with him the other day, discussing what we're doing with the investigator is, and just and it's nice when you can have that with an actor, and I've always said one is not crazy about gigging, a thing that is called a gigging actor, actors who just take work, who have and we are so blessed with people who are cast out. They call you and say, this accent that you want me to do, what decade are we looking at? Which is exciting. You know what I mean? It's and we, so right now we've got him. He's been learning a bit of French.
Wow.
He's been learning French. And we went through another orbit with the character, and and you read again, and there's a moment we looked at again in the book when Peter says to Marie Therese, are you well? And she says, no, I'm fine. Just, not the exact words from the book, but she alludes to the fact that she's tired. She says, your military police have been coming and investigating me. They have a belief that I'm hiding you, and he said, very perceptive. Because she was, and so this idea that this person who's gone AWOL after the mutiny, that has to be found, because the beautiful thing that you've given, Peter stands out on the Mendy, because a lot of those people don't understand English, don't understand Afrikaans. Then he interprets
exactly.
And in that he becomes almost like this light that is there. And so we need to get on the floor and find these moments, and find this, and allow the piece to have breath, and to bring in the music.
Yes.
We've got another young guy called Nebuma Fabaja, who's also starting to create the soundscape. Soundscape of the piece, and audiences will be able to hear some really beautiful. It's music from here. It's French music. Even with the music, we've done exactly the Thierry thing that you experienced when you were taken to the coastline. This story, we were very cognizant of telling a story that happens in two countries.
And just to add to that, we have to thank you for allowing us to do this, but I'm very excited about the wind characters, which are not in the book. But we've used them as a story device. almost as a Greek chorus. They're these troubadours of literature.
Yes, yes.
So they are characters that we've created. They live through books. They are in and off stories. So what they do is they are the ones who start introducing the audience to who these characters are, where they're going to. And I really love.
Because exposition can be boring for a theatrical. So yeah, I loved that touch as well. Because exposition can be boring to the audience, you know. Yeah.
Yeah, so we use them to navigate this huge historical story that needs to be told.
One of them even says, "Where are we?" And the other one says, "What do you mean, where are we?" And he says, "From this place." And she says, "The scents are familiar, and the sights are familiar. Where is this?" And the other one says, "Oh my God!" Then she starts again, and he says, "We're in a book. We are floating gently on the pages of the book. We're here because of the imagination of the writer. What do you mean? Where are we?" You know what I mean?
So they keep having that conversation, the three of them. So it's been
that she's quite dizzy. There's one, the only girl of them. She's quite dizzy. See, there are moments when she doesn't remember, and then the other two characters that are played by Ngcobo and Sibusiso Mkhize get a little irritated with her because they want the story to move on. And when she says to them, so what are we here for? And she says, "What are we doing?" The one says, "Well, we're waiting." He says, "Waiting for what?" He says, "To tell the story." And he says, "Where does it start?" And he says, "You can start it wherever you want to start it." And so she looks, and then she sees the Eiffel Tower, and she sees the Notre Dame, and she says to them, "Are we in Paris?" And he says, and the other one says, "God, she gets it at last," you know. And then it gets, you know, and it just also helped us to jump into this big event that you've created in the book of the restaurant. And so once that happens, then you see this man walking in, wiping blood off his hands, and this then we set like the convention to the audience that this is how we're looking at telling it.
Yeah. Fred, if I may ask, what do you hope the audience gets out of this?
Primarily entertainment. But then think about what makes us as human beings, but also as South Africans, where we've been, where we're going, and of course start or contribute to this conversation that I keep going back to. So those are the elements that I hope the audience is going to elicit from this production.
And for you, James, both as someone who adapted this work, but also as a theatre maker and as a representative of Joburg Theatre.
Yeah, for me, it articulates the big humility we have at the theatre, that you can sit in rooms and dream of installations, this you want to do. We can't do all of it at the theatre. And the humility then says to you, there is somebody who has created a vehicle that we can bring in. And so such works, for me as artistic director of the theatres, are speaking to the fact that we want to constantly articulate that we're not a theatre that is in a pigeonhole. We are a hub of stories that our palette is bigger. We you know, and we also are talking to international partners that we want to invite to come see this work, because I really feel it's got international legs to be, you know, just like one can sit in a theater and watch the Waterloo and Bonaparte, and you know, and it's the story with that historical volume. You know what I mean? You can watch a piece about Pinochet in Argentina, and you can watch a piece about the Spanish Inquisition. You know what I mean? And if you are a person of the world who's curious about the world. You get a story from anywhere, and then you start saying how similar that was to what was happening in my country. The triumphs of whatever people, the decimation of other people, of histories, of their anthropology, of their languages is similar in the world.
Exactly.
When there's always somebody who conquers somebody, and there's somebody who's always looking at the embers of the fire and think this fire was once a furnace. They want to light it again so that the future generations can see its visibility from far away. So that for me is what really story is about. And one thing that warms my heart when I walk into the theater and you see young couples, you can see entry level, they graduated like 2 years ago, and they come in and you see them share pasta and and they're coming to watch. We want to see all sorts of Joburg people to come and watch this. We already have people in Cape Town who are saying, "Is it coming here?"
Exactly. Yeah.
And you know, for me, and I've been thinking a lot about this national dialogue, because there's so much conversation going around it. People saying, why do we need this? We just need to implement, we need to this, we need to... And I've sort of been rethinking it. We're now 30 years old as a country, and perhaps we do need to start all over, going back to basics, have a new conversation. And I always think that theater is a space where you start conversations, where you bring in new conversations. Because more than television and film, theater gives you so much more space to be creative, to have a whole set of different conversations that TV and film might not be able to do. And I find also that in South Africa, what we're doing in theater, the stories that we see on the stage, they're so amazing. They touch on what's current, what's pivotal. And I hope that young people in particular will start seeing theater as that space where they can go and see different stories being told, different ideas being tested, contested. Theater is that space. We have that privilege. And so a lot of young people say, well, yes, we've got podcasts and whatnot, but we don't see representations of ourselves in a lot of different spaces. And theater, I want to say, is that space.
Another thing that we desperately need to do in this country, I drive people mad. Wherever I am, I'm always talking about it. We need to take away this thing from theater that says it's elite. There is nothing elite about theater. And I always say one of my biggest dreams is to know that we can live in a country where there are a bunch of guys or a couple that can go and watch a derby this one weekend, and the next weekend they go and watch a play.
Exactly.
It needs to just become one of the things you do.
Yeah.
So there are countries around the world where if somebody took a wife to the theater, or a lover to the theater, or a colleague, a neighbor, whatever, on Monday they don't say, I went to the theater.
Yeah.
They say, we watch Yerma, because everybody goes to the theater.
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
Exactly.
It's so...
And it sort of reminds me, I invited this Uber driver to watch a play. And he's from Tembisa, and he had never been to theater. So I got him in the tickets. He went to watch. He came out, he says, oh my God, is this what happens in theater? He says, I didn't know. I'm going to bring my friend. I said, yes, go to the theater. You can still go and drink afterwards.
Exactly.
But start here. And then when you go have a drink afterwards, you discuss what you watched.
Yeah.
So...
That in the auditorium, you can have a person who's a paleontologist, a senior counsel, a person who's a butcher manager at Pick and Pay, sitting, and it's just like all sorts of people watching a play.
Yeah.
Because,
No, it's amazing because you and I grew up on a staple of Gibson Kente plays.
Yeah.
I come from KZN, small township. So we would wait for the next Gibson Kente play. We watch it, and Gibson Kente goes, and almost every school, every high school will have their own interpretation of a copy, a cut and paste kind of situation, or they're doing their version of Gibson Kente. So that's how theatre became vibrant in the townships back then. So this elitism thing is a myth.
I don't know
really.
where it comes from. I remember one time my father had these very nice shoes. Fred will tell you there was a very famous a movie house in Devon called Shah Jahan. Around the corner there was a shop called Diambaram that sold the most beautiful shoes. And my father used to take me and buy nice shoes. And my brother. And I'm a Brentwood and I'm a exactly in Saxon and and my brother had these shoes, and I'm the youngest boy in my family. So I kept seeing these shoes. He wasn't wearing them. One day I said, "When are you going to wear them?" And he says to me, "No, they're waiting for Gibson Kente's next year, his new play." So that's how it's, and a revisit of taking theatre around the country is something that we desperately need to do, you know what I mean? And a story like this, and there's a section where Fred does a beautiful narration when somebody in the train, he says there were people from Clever, from what. The whole country was in this compartment. So we need to resuscitate the traveling of theatre in this country. And one of the things I always say is that when you ask people, why can't we take a play in that province, and they go, oh no, but there's no theatre. We need to start doing university tours.
Exactly.
Because if you hit, there's no province that doesn't have a university. If you hit universities, you could do a piece of theatre in those halls where they do the graduations and go and put things up. And so it's been beautiful. The team that is marketing the production yesterday, they were speaking to me about the interest from universities,
beautiful,
from the world of academia, people that are wanting to have an audience with us and talk about this. So I'm quite excited. Sure.
Because another thing about theatre, as opposed to other representation of storytelling, the immediacy. The immediacy that you want, the spontaneity as well that you won't find in a movie or a TV production, the immediacy. And as I mentioned to Gibson Kente earlier, Gibson Kente would take a subject that was burning at the time and dramatize it. And this is what you guys are doing. This story is very topical, in a way. The issues or the themes that we delve into in this story are things that are confronting us as a nation right now.
You get a sense also of these men with broken dreams. Who end up, and we see it. We see it today. You know what I mean? It's just an image that is everywhere, where you see somebody who's all forlorn because they just there's nothing in the horizon coming from anywhere, and so. I always say when people say to me, "Oh, but why are you doing that? It's an old story." I think I told you that somebody said that to me about some piece, but it's an old story. And I said, I really would love somebody to show me what an old story looked like, because I know what happens to cheese when it's old; it goes moldy. And I said, somebody needs to say to me, "Here's an old story," and I think, "Oh, is this what happens to it? It changes color; it becomes." Because there's no old story, you know what I mean? And there's also a thing that if there is a generation that has never read it or that has never seen it, that story is not old.
It's new to them. It's new to them.
It's new. Wow. Well, so this is a call to young people. Please come and see this brilliant work by Fred Khumalo, Dancing the Death Drill, at Joburg Theatre. We open on the 9th of September with previews. The show ends on the 28th of September. We've got a brilliant cast. We've got Clint Brink, we've got Tuli Tabete, we've got Ngcobo, we've got Zano, we've got Msaki, a musical director. I mean, come on. And I just want to inform the audience and the public about the hashtags, including you. We're launching the hashtags Remember Their Names, and this is to spark public discourse, especially within tertiary institutions. Remember the names of those who perished on the SS Mendi. And the other hashtag is the echoes of the Mendi. So we also, this is also for the docu-series that delves deeper into the stories. And maybe let's conclude some final words, James, Fred.
All I can say, I think the audience is in safe hands with these two great directors, Palesa Mazamisa and James Ngcobo. I mean, what a team, what a formidable team. And then, of course, the cherry on top is the acting, the caliber of actors that you guys managed to recruit and make them buy into the story. So the audience is in safe hands. Yeah.
Well, I've been waking up in the morning. You know, when you're about to start a new piece, you're filled with such trepidation and fear. I've been walking like Speedy Gonzales. You know, but the one thing that I think Palesa and I share is the humility when you start the work. Is for everybody on the 4th of August to know that had Fred Khumalo not written this book, we wouldn't be meeting on Monday, So when that happens in the rehearsal room, is the most, because it becomes a time of looking. You look, you try this, and you go, no, this doesn't work. And then one day somebody walks in and go, oh my God! And you go, what is it? Because they found something. You know what I mean? And so it's my brother said to me, I can see your death. And I said, well, what do you mean you can see my death? He said, you'll be driving and get an idea and go, oh my God, into the wall. You know, because we're always thinking of what the next thing to do, but we're looking forward to it.
No, thank
Yeah,
you.
we really do.
Thank you.
So
Thank you.
thank
very
you
much.
again, James, for your time. Thanks so much, Fred.
Thank you.
And I echo what James says. This work is just phenomenal. I really hope that people will come to the theatre and just experience this amazing work from the brilliant writer. It's work that really speaks to us today. It's an old story, but it's got current relevance. So once more time, it's the Joburg Theatre from the 9th of September to the 28th of September. And the hashtags, remember their names, and the echoes of the Mendi. Thank you.
Thank you.